project. The Carnegie Project on Education has a number of goals. The first, when we started the project, we said, well, we don't know too much about education reform efforts in the Arab countries. This hasn't been documented in a systematic way, and we would like to see some studies that look at sort of a survey of current efforts or a mapping exercise or an inventory. So we commissioned studies for 11 countries that cover the region, cover the various sub-regions. The studies covered the Maghreb, 3 countries in the Maghreb: Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. It covered 3 GCC countries: Bahrain, UAE, and Oman. It covered also Egypt. In the Mashriq, it covered Iraq, Jordan, Palestine, and Lebanon. We didn't cover every single country, and this wasn't the purpose. The purpose was really to get a good idea about the general situation, and the findings that we have more or less can be generalized to the other countries, like the GCC findings apply also to other GCC countries in many ways. The second goal was that through this process we will be building research capacity in the region. So the capacity here, we're talking about external scholars. We're not talking about Carnegie itself, because Carnegie is commissioning these studies to external Arab scholars. For instance, the study on Egypt was done by an Egyptian scholar. The study on Tunisia was done by a Tunisian scholar, and so on. So it can build regional capacity for research, also build capacity for implementation of policies and practice. Another goal was to expand knowledge about student values, student practices, and also teacher values and teacher practices. We're also interested to know more about teacher preparation, since teachers are a key factor in the education system, and we'll talk later about problems that we found with teacher status and knowledge. Finally, we will assist in developing a conceptual framework and as a basis for discussion, since there are a lot of concepts that are debatable and not being agreed upon by various scholars in the Arab countries. The phases of the project are, they correspond to the goals. So the first phase is a documentation phase. It's the studies that were commissioned, and the studies were completed about a year ago, and then we're interested in disseminating the findings through various channels, writing papers, holding meetings, a conference, through various media channels, writing op-eds, for the media channels doing TV interviews, through social media and the like. That's the phase 1, and we have completed phase 1 so far. The second phase, now from phase 1 we have findings. We found gaps in our knowledge about citizenship education. We found that we need more research in certain areas. Who's going to do that research? Our approach is that national research committees should be formed. We can help in their formation, but that these research committees at the national level, like an Egyptian research committee, Tunisian, Lebanese, etc., they should conduct research to fill these gaps and also develop conceptual framework that is appropriate to each country or to each group of countries if relevant. Then once they finish the studies, dissemination of findings and of the studies, which Carnegie can help with, along with development of new initiatives. So we would like at the end to come up with at least one new initiative in one of those countries that could be implemented. But again, this is the role of the National Research Committee, and we can help out with technical assistance and with facilitation, but that will be the role of National Research Committee, since they are more aware of the specifics and sensitivities in each country. And finally, hopefully, if we get to implementation of at least 1 or 2 new initiatives, there can be monitoring and evaluation of this new initiative, and we can assist with that. What did we find from these studies that were done in these countries? I will provide some general statements which would vary from one country to another, but it will apply, generally speaking, to the countries. First, there is a wide gap between the reform goals that are stated by governments, whether in their strategic plans or in other statements about the goals of citizenship education. There is a wide gap between what they say and what they implement. Another finding is that the political commitment to raise free, democratic, and creative citizens, which is present in some of these documents, we don't see real serious political commitment that is continuous and that is tangible. You can see some political statements here and there, but that maybe one minister will make a positive statement and then the next minister will change his mind. So there is no continuity and serious political commitment to that. Another finding is that the methods used in schools, public schools, K-12, are mainly teacher-directed. They're not student-centered, and that learning assessment methods that are being used do not focus on higher-order thinking. So when they teach civic education, they emphasize rote learning, so students would have to learn by heart what is democracy, what are the articles in the Constitution, how to vote, etc. And then they regurgitate that in exams. One main problem in the case of teachers is that there is no teacher appreciation and support in most cases. And the social and financial status of teachers in public schools is really not high. They need higher social and financial status, and they are ill-prepared academically and pedagogically to teach debatable issues in class. So if you want a competent teacher in class to debate issues like gender equality, issues that are really sensitive, you need teachers who are well prepared academically and pedagogically and have enough self-confidence to conduct these kinds of open discussion in class. In teaching civic education, there is focus on the knowledge aspect rather than the skills development aspect or the activities aspect. And it's not a requirement in most cases for students to participate in activities. There's one exception. It was Bahrain, where the government required community service from secondary school students. This was applied maybe for a year or two. I'm not sure they are still applying it before the latest uprising or turmoil. In general, there's problem of good governance. Accountability, in many cases, school principals are accountable only to the ministry. They are not accountable to the public. And in many situations, there's no transparency. So you don't know exactly how decisions are made, or a lot of things that take place in the school take place under authoritarian kind of non-transparent situations. The school climate, by school climate I mean a number of components. Safety is one component, and by safety we mean physical, emotional, social safety. And the data here come from international tests, mainly TIMSS, where they asked students and teachers a number of questions. In the case of safety, they asked students, how safe do you feel at your school? Meaning they asked about certain indicators, like were you beaten at school, anything stolen from you, from any of your friends, any incident during the past month, this sort of thing. The other question is about teaching and learning, and there you have methods of teaching, you have the working conditions of the teacher, job satisfaction and stuff. Interpersonal refer to relations between teachers and students, among teachers, between teachers and administrators. Institutional environment refers to, for instance, availability of resources in the school. It refers to involvement of parents in the school, participation in committees, participation in decision making, and relations with the outside community. All of these four components were measured in this in the international tests, and generally speaking, they were negative. I will show you what an index I have created from the data that are available. In general, the school climate is authoritarian and repressive, and it's not conducive to civic competence. The index of school climate, I have calculated this composite index from the following indicators: safety, which we talked about, teacher development. Teacher development, they asked teachers, have you participated in any teacher development program during the past 2 years? And here we're talking about math teachers, math or science, but I singled out math teachers because I had more data. Teacher working conditions, how do you describe your working conditions? Are you satisfied with it? Do you have enough space to work for work? Do you have enough time to prepare for your classes? Students' learning method, what type of learning method do students have? Is it the rote learning method, or using any student-centered methods? Learning resources, availability of labs, whether for math or science, availability of libraries, and are the libraries accessible, and do students borrow books and other resources from it? And then there's the parental involvement in schools. Do they participate in committees? Do they participate in decision making? All these factors there are data on that haven't been analyzed before. And there's a Carnegie paper which I wrote about this topic. And this composite index I created from these 6 indicators. The way the chart, if you want to read the chart, it's like this. If a country has a score that is equivalent to the international average, it will have a score of 0. If it is significantly above average, it will have a score of +1. If it is significantly below average, it will have a score of -1. Significantly, I mean statistical significance at the 0.01 level. So each country now has a score on each of these 6 indicators. So the maximum they can have is +6, and the minimum is -6, and 0 would be international average. So if we use this is the overall index, we come up with the following finding, that all the Arab countries have, generally speaking, you can say negative. School climates below international average, with 2 exceptions. One is Dubai, which is equal to the international average, 0, and Lebanon, which is 2 points above. Again, the data are from mainly TIMSS. If we look at the findings from the 11 studies and try to group the countries into categories with regard to priorities in citizenship education, we find diversity. We find we can talk about 3 groups of countries. Again, based on the studies and based on the curriculum frameworks that they have. One group would like to raise religious citizens, like the case of Jordan and Egypt, and this is clearly stated in the frameworks. The other group would like to develop patriotic nationals, like Lebanon or UAE or Palestine. There is a third group that would like to have citizens with 2 or more identities, whether it's national and ethnic, religious, Arab and global, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, like the case of Tunisia or the case of Iraq. We find also variations when we look at approaches to citizenship education, whether we talk about content, allocated time, or the pedagogical model. In some countries, you have one single course, course in civics or national education stuff. You have countries that teach civics as part of social studies. So you have, for instance, history, geography, and civics. Or social studies as a general course, and then you have maybe chapters on civics. There is also I think only one country, maybe 2, who have integrated the citizenship concept or civic concepts and topics into different subjects like Arabic, English, religious studies and stuff. There is also, we can also look at some countries where they have a single course and they also have material integrated into different subjects. Usually it's one weekly session that is taught between 40 and 60 minutes depending on the country. So in some countries 40 minutes, others 60 minutes. And teaching starts at different grades. So in some countries starts at grade 1, others 5th grade, 11th grade, but in general it's not an important course. So it doesn't affect the general average of the student, and so like especially student in high school and secondary, ثانوية العامة or these grades, passing or this course is not very important with a high grade. Even if you fail, it may not count. In some countries, it doesn't enter the general average. One observation is that the content and titles of these courses, they stress patriotism and they stress loyalty to the regime. Even the titles of the courses, oftentimes it's national education, national and civic education, civic and national education, civic education, national upbringing. These terms are often used in countries in different terms. What do the textbooks include? Not all of them include all of these 4 categories, but you will find them in different countries. You find, for instance, generally speaking, they talk about civic society and systems, including democracy. They include civic principles like equality and human rights. Citizenship identity is also usually included, and that includes like the national Arab Islamic identity is there. Civic participation topic is